Welcome to Acera's new employee slash mid-career seminar. In this seminar, we are assuming that you're either you're a new employee, or you're somewhere in the middle of your career, which is why I named it New Employee slash Mid-Career Seminar. The bottom line there is that you're not yet near retirement, and that's a good thing because it means that you still have plenty of time to plan for retirement. So in this seminar, I'm going to tell you all the things that you might want to know about doing that retirement planning. And since you're curious enough about your retirement to watch this, you probably have some questions. Questions like, what do I need to know about my pension? What do I need to do? Do I need to do anything? And if I do need to do something, what are those things? Well, I have organized the answers to all of your questions into the form of this checklist. So we're going to go through all of these topics during the presentation. I'm going to help you understand a little bit about retirement basics. That's kind of how Acera works, how the pension system works. I'll tell you, as part of that discussion, a little bit about pension math. It's just a tiny bit. It's the retirement formula. It's real simple. And then we'll talk about purchasing service credit as part of that discussion. And that is a topic around increasing the amount of your pension that you'll get when you finally retire. I will show you how to get a pension estimate. And that's taking a little peek into the future using our online tools to get an estimate of your future pension. I'm going to help you understand retirement eligibility. So this is when you're actually eligible to retire, because there's a few requirements that you have to meet, and I'll show you what those are. I'll talk a little bit about some additional benefits that we have, like death benefits and healthcare benefits. I will talk about designating your beneficiary or beneficiaries for the death benefits that Acera offers. And we'll talk about understanding some career planning options. And what I mean by that is at some point in the future, you're going to stop working here. And what does that mean for your Acera account? And what are your options? And then I will help you make a retirement planning picture. And what I mean by that is taking a little peek into the future, getting some estimates, and getting you on the trajectory now to have an adequate amount to retire when it finally becomes time. And as part of that discussion, we'll talk about starting a 457B account, and that is when I will bring in the expert from the county's 457B program. Okay, let's jump right in. Let me help you understand some retirement basics. Let me start at the beginning of the story. So you're in this Acera seminar. Well, who is Acera? In one sense, Acera is this acronym that is short for the Alameda County Employees Retirement Association. But what we do at Acera, there's about 90 of us that work here. We're all county employees, just like you. We're public employees. What we do is we provide retirement, disability, and death benefits to our members. So that's all of you. You are also part of Acera, part of the who that is Acera. And you're a member of Acera because of the position that you work in and who you work for. So you work currently full-time, or at some point in the past, you worked full-time in a retirement eligible position for one of the 6 participating employers in Acera. Now, these are the 6 public agencies in Alameda County that use Acera to provide retirement benefits to their employees. So if you work for one of these agencies and you work in that retirement eligible position, either currently full-time or at some point in the past full-time, that automatically made you an Acera member, and you are now an Acera member for the rest of your career here. Your membership is automatic, and it's also mandatory. So, as an Acera member, you are contributing to Acera's fund with every paycheck. Okay, so this is you, and this is you contributing to Acera's fund. And if you look at your pay stub and you look in the before tax deductions column, this is a county pay stub. If you work for one of the other employers, it might look a little bit different, but you'll see a line in the before tax deductions column for retirement. And that is an amount of money coming out of each paycheck and going into Acera's fund. So every time you get paid, that happens. And also every time you get paid, your employer is contributing to the fund on your behalf. Well, we don't want that money to just sit around and collect dust. So what we do is we invest it all over the world in a diverse array of investments. and we earn a lot of interest on those investments. And so it's these three sources of income that give us this big pot of money that we call a Sarah's fund. So what do we do with that money? Why are we collecting all this money? Well, in the future, well, actually, currently, as you work, you are earning credit toward retirement. And I'll tell you what that means. You're earning credit in a few minutes. You're earning credit in three different categories, which I'll explain in just a few minutes. So as you work, you're earning more and more credit toward retirement. And then at some point in the future, you're going to stop working and you're going to retire. And at that point, you stop earning credit toward retirement and you start collecting the retirement that you've earned. And you're going to collect that every month for the rest of your life in the form of this retirement allowance. Now, as we go through the presentation, I'll throw around some terminology: retirement allowance, pension, pension allowance, pension benefit, retirement benefit. These are all synonymous terms for this same concept, this monthly payment you'll get every month for the rest of your life on the last business day of the month that you have earned. That is your retirement payment. And just a little side note here, pensions are special. So you, like I said, are contributing to the retirement fund with every paycheck, okay, throughout your entire career. Now, when you go to retire, when you hit this point in retirement, we are going to start paying you your retirement allowance every month out of that money that you paid in first. And so basically, we're going to give you all the money back that you paid in, plus all the interest that has accrued on that money in the first 3 to 5 years of retirement, which would be about this section here, in the average retiree lifespan. So everything after that is like this amazing bonus that you get for participating in what's called a defined benefit pension plan, like a SARA. Your benefit is defined by a formula. It's an amount of money that you can plan for as you're working, because you can get estimates of it. And then at the time you retire, you can expect those estimates to be correct so that you have the amount of money that you planned for every month for the rest of your life. You cannot outlive your retirement. It goes on every month for the rest of your life. So that's one of the main reasons why pensions are special, because it's this guaranteed retirement that you've earned by deferring some of your wages into a SARS fund as you're working, and then you get to collect this secure payment every month for the rest of your life. And we give you all your money back within the first 3 to 5 years. Now, how do we pay the rest of it? Well, it's from the employer contributions, but mostly the interest. The interest that we earn by investing your money pays for about 3/4 of your lifetime pension. Let me show you some pension milestones, and this will help illustrate some of the concepts that we are going to talk about throughout the presentation. Okay. So this is kind of a high-level view of some of the events that you can expect in your membership with a SARA. The first milestone is your first day of work in that full-time retirement eligible position. Now, this could be the first day that they told you to show up to work if you got hired right into that full-time retirement eligible position, or alternatively, if you were working for your employer in some other capacity prior, this would be your first day of work in that full-time retirement eligible position. Now, for almost all of our employers, what happens is 2 weeks goes by, and the first day of your second pay period is your date of entry into a SARA. So this is your first day of a SARA membership, and this is when you start earning credit toward retirement. Now, there's two employers. I believe it is the Housing Authority, and I believe Livermore Area Recreation and Parks District, that there is no gap. The first day of work is the date of entry into a SARA, but everyone else, it happens 2 weeks later. Okay, so now you're in a SARA member, you're earning credit toward retirement. 5 years goes by, or the equivalent of 5 full-time years of work. And at 5 years, when you have earned 5 years of what we call service credit with a SARA, you're considered vested in the pension system. Vesting is kind of a loose term, but what happens at 5 years is you start being able to actually access some of the benefits that you've been earning. And the word vested just kind of means guaranteed. So once you're vested in the system, you're guaranteed the vested benefits. You're basically guaranteed the guaranteed benefits. So that happens at 5 years. Okay, then some other indeterminate amount of time goes by, and you reach retirement eligibility. And I say it's indeterminate because it's going to be different for each one of you because there's a combination of your years of service credit and age that gets you to retirement eligibility. There's a few different combinations. I'll show you what those are a little bit later in the presentation. But this is the day that you could retire if you wanted to. This is the first day you could um, technically require, technically retire if you want to, but you don't have to. You choose your retirement date, and many people continue working past retirement eligibility to earn more and more credit toward retirement, which earns you a higher and higher monthly payment when you retire. Okay, so then the next milestone is your date of retirement. And like I said, this is the date that you choose. And this is when you start, I'm sorry, the next milestone is actually your termination date. This is the date that you leave work. And I got confused for a second because these often are two consecutive dates. The date you leave work is one day, and then for many people, your first day of retirement is the next calendar day after that. And this is the date that you choose. So you stop earning credit toward retirement when you stop working, and when you retire, this is when you start collecting the retirement that you've earned. Okay. Now, sometimes there's going to be a gap between these two dates. Okay. Some of you are going to leave work and you're not going to retire immediately. Totally fine. Many people do that, and I'll show you what your options are regarding that in the second half of the presentation. Okay. So now that you're retired, so at some point in the future, on a date that you chose, you start collecting your retirement, and you collect it every month for the rest of your life until your death, and that's when your retirement payments stop. Now, there's one more milestone here, which is that at the time of your retirement, excuse me, I'm so sorry, you had the option to choose a beneficiary for a continuance. And a continuance is just a continuing payment, continuing monthly payment similar to your retirement payment. So after your death, your continuance beneficiary would receive a monthly payment in most cases for the rest of their life. And once your beneficiary passes away, that concludes all of the benefits that Acera pays out that we owe you. Okay. Let me check on the questions here. Okay, so the first question is about vesting. And I had mentioned that it comes with 5 years of service credit. And to answer your question, it does include reciprocity. And reciprocity, I'll tell you about that in detail in the second half of the presentation. But basically, it's when you link two retirement systems together. So the example the person in the question gave is that if you worked for CalPERS, which is the state pension system, if you were working a state job and you were earning credit under CalPERS for 3 years, you stop working there, you come over to Acera, Alameda County, and immediately start working here. You earn 2 years of service credit with Acera. Those 3 and 2 combined get you over the vesting requirement, and you're considered vested in both systems. So that does include reciprocity. And like I said, I'll explain all the details of reciprocity in the second half of the presentation. And the guarantee, I said vesting means guaranteed. The guarantee comes from state law. State law tells us how to run Acera. It governs everything that we do. And the vested benefits, the guaranteed benefits, are the monthly retirement allowance for the rest of your life, an annual cost of living increase to that allowance, and a $1,000 lump sum death benefit that is considered vested. And there's some other death benefits I'll talk about in the second half of the presentation. Okay, let me check on some of these other questions here. So there's a question: in the first 3 to 5 years of being a retiree, will the benefit per month be more since you're getting paid all the money you put in? No, it will not. Whatever we calculate your retirement to be at the time of retirement, that's going to be your retirement payment every month for the rest of your life, plus cost of living increases. So we're going to do the calculation at the time of retirement, and that's what it's going to be for the rest of your life. It's just that behind the scenes, the way that we pay it out is your contributions first, then the employer contributions, and then from investment earnings. Okay, the next question is about buying service credit. I'll address that in just a few minutes. Yes, children can be a beneficiary. I'll talk about that in the second half when I talk about beneficiaries. The question about leaving greater benefits, the email that we sent out in April regarding the new advanced death benefit election, I will definitely talk about that in the second half of the presentation. And yeah, there's no downside to that election, and I'll talk about that. So thanks for those questions. I will definitely get to those. Okay, so let me tell you about your tier. You, as an Acera member, are in one of these Acera tiers, and your tier is based on when you entered Acera, your date of Acera entry. And the way it works is that if you entered Acera before the cutoff for each tier, then that puts you in the earlier tier. Okay. Now, the way to figure out which one of these timelines to look at, first of all, is are you a safety member? Safety members are sheriff's deputies and probation officers, and it's possible there are some other sworn officers that I'm not aware of that are safety members. But those are safety members. So you're going to look at the bottom timeline here, and then everyone else is what's called a general member. So you look at the top timeline, unless you're a general member for the housing authority, and then you look at this timeline here for the housing authority. If you're a general member for Livermore Area Recreation and Park District, you look at the third timeline down. Okay, so let me give you an example. If you entered Acera before July 1st, 1983, and you're a general member, that would put you in tier 1. If you entered Acera July 1st, 1983, all the way up to December 31st, 2012, that would put you in tier 2. If you entered Acera January 1st, 2013 and beyond, that would put you in tier 4. And that's the case with all of the timelines. Now you'll notice that the Housing Authority has a different cutoff for tier 1. Livermore Area Recreation and Park District has a tier 3. They don't have a tier 2, and there's a different cutoff date for tier 1. And then the safety members have 3 tier 2s, tier 2 B, C, and D. And if you entered Acera between October 17th, 2010 and December 31st, 2012, you had a choice between tier 2C and tier 2D that you had to make within your first 45 days of safety membership. And if you didn't, you were defaulted into one of the tiers. Now, which one were you defaulted into? I'm not sure. But you can look this up yourself. And in fact, no matter which tier you belong to, or whether you're a safety or general member, you can find your tier by logging into your account on our website. So you go to acera.org, you press the login button in the upper right corner, and you log into your account, and it will tell you not only which tier you're in, but it will tell you your date of entry as well. And a bunch of other information about your pension account. So it's definitely good to log in there and check that out. But that's how your tier works. So you're all in one of these tiers. And the differences between the tiers are kind of slight, but we'll talk about that. I'll show you what the differences between the tiers are as we talk, especially about the retirement formula. One more thing that I wanted to mention about the tiers is that if you came into Acera with reciprocity because you used to work for another public agency in California, then it's possible that if you started that other job before the cutoff date for one of these tiers, that would put you in the earlier tier. If you want more information about that, you can go to acera.org/tiers. And there's some more details about getting into an earlier tier. There's a question, what happens if a member leaves employment and then returns 15 years later? If retirement was taken out previously, does the employer contribution still remain after returning? Well, it all depends on what decision you make when you leave. So there's 3 different decisions, which I'll talk about in the second half of the presentation, but one of them is deferring your membership, which is you leave your contributions with Acera and your membership just kind of goes on hold. Or the other one is you withdraw your funds. Now, if you withdraw your funds, you cancel your Acera membership. And if you come back 15 years later, your date of entry is going to be based on re-entering Acera in your second membership. Now, if you deferred, you were a member the whole time, and so your tier is going to be based on your original date of entry. Okay, so I'm going to show you this slide right now, and we're going to return to this concept later, but I just wanted to show it to you to provide the kind of broader context for our entire discussion here. Okay, because this is the new employee slash mid-career webinar, and what I'm trying to help you do is um, not only understand how Acera works, but like get a little view into the future, get a little picture of the future to get on a trajectory toward having adequate retirement income when it comes time for you to retire. So when you go to retire in the future, you know, whether it's 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 years away, you're going to need some income because you are going to no longer be working for your employer. And where will that income come from? Well, one of these sources, if you retire from Acera, will be your Acera monthly pension. If you have pensions from other employers, you could group that in with this category, monthly pensions. Another source of income will be Social Security. If you work at least what they call 40 quarters, which is the equivalent of 10 full-time years, you will be able to collect Social Security when you're eligible to collect it in the future. Okay, so that's another source of income. Beyond that, beyond those two categories, every other source of income can be lumped into this category, which is your personal savings and investments. And what financial planners will tell you, kind of their guideline, is that in retirement, you're going to need to be bringing in through your retirement income 80% of what you were making in your salary right before you retired. This is known as salary replacement. So this is an 80% salary replacement or more is what they say. Okay. Now that can sound kind of onerous at this point in your career, especially if you're brand new or maybe you're in your mid-career and you haven't been attentive to this topic before. But this is actually going to be really pretty simple. Okay. We're not actually going to do any math. We're going to use technology. We're going to use some calculators to figure all this out. And I'll show you how to do all that in the second half of the presentation. And you're going to be surprised at how simple this is. Okay. And so I think your stress level will go way down about this topic. So I'm showing you this slide now to just kind of provide the context to say that we're going to talk a lot about the Acera monthly pension because that's my specialty. And then I'll talk a little bit after I talk about the Acera monthly pension about Social Security and savings and investments, and that will kind of bleed into the 457B topic. And so we'll help you get pointed in a trajectory of 80% salary replacement. So we will revisit this slide in the second half of the presentation. So before we do that, let me go ahead and tell you about the Acera monthly pension and how it's calculated, how to get that little window into the future. And if you're new or you're in the middle of your career, you may be asking, why do I need to know this now? Well, this will actually help you maximize this number right here, the Acera monthly pension. And the way to get to 80% is to maximize each of these three numbers. So that's basically what I'm going to focus on is maximizing those numbers. And in order to maximize it, you kind of have to understand a little bit about how it works. And it's good to understand this now if you're a new employee or if you're in the middle of your career, rather than waiting to get the understanding when you're getting ready to retire. Okay, so pension math. If you don't like math, this is actually pretty simple. It's just an easy multiplication. There's three factors in this formula. Okay. Now, what you're looking at here is the retirement formula that we're going to use to calculate your monthly retirement allowance for the rest of your life, also known as your pension benefit, your retirement benefit. This is the monthly payment you're going to get every month for the rest of your life. Okay. So this is the calculation that we're going to do when you go to retire. Okay. So let me help you understand how this works. Earlier when I said that you're earning credit toward retirement, these are the three categories that you're earning credit toward retirement in. This age factor percentage, you earn credit by just getting older, and you get higher and higher age factor percentages. Service credit is basically work time. So if you work for 10 years full time, you earn 10 years of service credit. Salary is the money that you're making. So as you get cost of living increases or raises, or you go to higher and higher positions, that is how you maximize the salary component of the formula. Okay, so how does this work? When you go to retire, you are going to get, as your monthly retirement allowance, you are going to get a percentage of your highest salary from your entire career for each individual year of service that you work. Now, this sentence is telling you in English what this math equation is doing. Let me plug some numbers in here, and I think it will illuminate this a lot more easily. Let's say, for example, that the percentage of your highest salary that you are going to get for each year of service is 2%. Okay. And let's say that you work full time for 20 years or the equivalent of full time for 20 years. Maybe you work 18 years full time and then 4 years half time. Well, that would be the equivalent of 20 full time years of service credit, which would be what you would have earned at retirement. Okay. So in this example, you're going to get 2% of your highest salary for each individual one of these 20 years of service. Okay, so if we take 2% and we line it all up, 2% plus 2% plus 2% plus 2%, we do that 20 times, we're essentially multiplying 2% by 20. 2% times 20 is 40%. If we add up 2% 20 times, that's 40%. Okay, so that means that your retirement allowance is going to be 40% of your highest average monthly salary in this example. Now, to finish out the example, I'll plug in the salary number just to show you. In this example, let's say that your highest average monthly salary during your career was $5,000 that you are earning each month on average. So your retirement allowance, as we now know, is going to be 40% of this number. So we basically just finish out the multiplication, multiply 40% by $5,000, and your retirement allowance is $2,000 per month for the rest of your life, plus cost of living increases. And in this example, you're achieving 40% income replacement from just your Acera pension alone, which is actually pretty good. Okay. Because as I showed you earlier, there's going to be a couple of other sources of income, including Social Security and your personal savings that will get you the rest of the way. The bottom line here, if you just have one takeaway from this whole equation, okay, if you forget the rest of the details, the bottom line here is that the higher any of these numbers are, the higher the age factor percentage, based on you being an older and older age when you retire, the more years of service credit and the higher the salary, because it's a multiplication, it equals a higher monthly retirement allowance. So the way to maximize your retirement allowance is maximizing each of these three numbers. Now, let me tell you in detail. Let me go into a few more details about each one of these three factors, okay? So I'll spend some time on the age factor percentage first, and I'll show you how to maximize each one of these three, okay? First of all, the age factor percentage. So what percentage of your highest salary will you get for each year of service? Well, it's going to be based on your age at retirement. So we don't know right now, but we will know by the time you retire, okay? And when you go to retire, the way that we figure out what percentage of your highest salary you're going to get for each year of service is by using this chart. This is a sample of some of the age factors, okay? Now, all you need to do is find the column for your tier and forget about all the other columns. So if you're a general member and you're tier 2, you just look at this column. If you're a general member, tier 4, you just look at this column, and so on and so forth, okay? And like I said, safety is probation officers and sheriff's deputies. The way this works is whatever age you retire at, we pull one of these numbers out of this chart based on your tier. So if you're a general tier 4 member, and let's say you retire at age 65, well, we need to do this equation. We need to plug something into this spot right here, age factor percentage. So we bring up your account and we see you're a general tier 4 member, you're retiring at age 65. We find where those intersect. we see it's 2.30%. So that is the percentage that we would plug in the formula for you. You would get 2.30% of your highest salary for each year of service. And you'll notice that the numbers get bigger the older you are. So that is the way that you maximize the age factor percentage, is by retiring at an older age, waiting a little bit longer until you age a little bit more. And in fact, another thing that you'll notice about the chart is I skipped a bunch of the ages, and that's because there's actually so many incremental increases that they don't all fit on the slide. There's an incremental increase every quarter year based on your birthday. So every quarter year that you age, there's actually a slightly higher age factor percentage that you would get based on aging one quarter year. So if this were the full chart, the real chart, it would say like 55, 55 and a quarter, 55 and a half, 55 and three quarters, 56, and so on and so forth. And there would be a little slightly higher age factor percentage for each one of those increases. And I said it's based on your birthday. To give you a quick example, if your birthday is January 15th, one quarter after your birthday is April 15th, two quarters is July 15th, three quarters is October 15th, and then back to your January 15th birthday. So every time you pass one of those dates and don't retire, you go up one notch in this age factor chart. And if you ever wanted to see the full chart with all of the increases, because you enjoy percentages and all that, we have that out on our website at acera.org/age. Oh yeah, thanks for that question. Good point. One more thing that I forgot to mention is that there's a cap on the increases to the age factor percentage represented by the blue box for each tier. So if you retire older than that age, you just get the maximum age factor percentage for your tier. So if you were a general tier 4 member and you retired at 68 or 69, you'd still get 2.50% in the formula for you. Okay. So I threw a ton of details about the age factor percentage at you. Now, if you don't want to remember all that detail, that's fine. And you're a new employee or you're in the middle of your career. Just remember this one thing. The older the retirement age equals a higher age factor percentage, of course, up to the max in the blue box for your tier. And that is the way you maximize the age factor percentage in the formula, just by getting older. Okay, factor number 2, service credit. You can already see where this is going probably. The way to maximize service credit is by working longer, working more years. You start earning service credit, as I said before, on your date of entry into Acera. And then you will earn service credit throughout your entire career as you continue your active membership, where you're actively working, actively contributing to the retirement system, all the way up until your termination date. And this is when you stop earning credit toward retirement and when you stop making retirement contributions to the system. Okay. Now, you earn service credit during your regular work hours. That makes sense. But you also earn service credit during your earned leave times, including vacation, sick leave, management leave, comp time, holidays, floating holidays. When you go out on those leave times, you're already earning service credit. They don't count against you. So it's pretty nice. Now, because I showed you a list of times when you do earn service credit, I have to show you the list of times when you don't earn service credit. If you ever go out on leave without pay, you do not earn service credit when you're out on leave without pay. If you're not getting paid by your employer, you're not earning service credit. If you purchase additional vacation from your employer, which most of our employers will allow, when you go out on that purchased vacation and mark that on your timesheet that you're using the purchased vacation, you do not earn service credit during that time. Okay. And let me just give you a caveat about that, is that some people will stress out about that. If this is something that you are doing occasionally, like over your span, your career span, every few years you went out on a week of purchased vacation, the amount of service credit that you've earned during all the other times is going to dwarf the loss from that, that purchase vacation here or there. So I wouldn't stress out about that. If you need to take a purchase vacation for your mental health and physical health, you just go ahead and do it. Okay. Also, sold vacation. This is a different thing that some of our employers will allow you to do, which is you take your earned vacation and you sell it back to your employer for cash, and you don't go out on a vacation. You just get the cash. You don't get service credit for that. Also, overtime, on-call time, or standby time, you do not earn service credit during those times. Okay, and I see a question popped up. Let me check that out. Okay, so there, going back real quick to the uh, age factor percentage chart. Um, what the question is, what if you're in another retirement system where your tier indicates a different age factor? Which one takes precedent at retirement? Well, I'm assuming that you're talking about you having a reciprocity, which means that you have credit over in one system and you have credit with a Sarah. Well, they don't really mix. Okay, so we don't mix the age factor percentage and the service credit parts of the formula um, between the two. Okay, so whatever service credit you earn over at the other place, they're going to use that when they go to calculate your retirement, and we're going to use whatever service credit you earned with a Sarah. Same thing for the age factor percentage for your tier. You might have a different age factor percentage in their formula, and we're going to use our chart. The one thing that will be the same, the one of the three factors in the formula that will be the same, will be the salary. And we'll use the highest salary from any of the reciprocal agencies. And like I said, I'll go into more detail about that a little bit later. I hope that answers your question. Okay, and then let's see here. Um, there's a question. You don't earn service credit while on maternity leave, right? Well, sometimes it all depends. So if you go out on maternity leave, sometimes often what happens is that you start using your sick leave balances. If you're using your sick leave balances, you are earning service credit. Now, maybe you run out of your leave balances in maternity leave, and then you're just out on medical leave without pay. Well, during that medical leave without pay, you are not earning service credit, but that becomes one of the types of service credit that is purchasable. Okay, so let me talk about purchasing service credit, um, since uh, since that's a good segue into that topic. Okay, so I said before that in order to maximize your retirement allowance, you want to maximize the three factors in the formula, and one of them is service credit. So one of the ways to maximize that, in addition to just working longer and earning more and more service credit, is if you have one of these types of time that is purchasable, you can purchase additional service credit, and that will get added on top of the service credit that you've earned, and it will give you more service credit in the formula and give you a higher retirement allowance. Okay. And the types of time that you can purchase, the theme here is basically that there's this time that you incurred during your career where the law did not allow for you to earn service credit for it, but it does allow for you to go back and purchase it later. Okay. So those let me list those out for you here. The first category is ineligible and non-covered service purchase. Okay. And that includes all of these listed out here. Okay. So for example, part-time work. This is where you started with your employer part-time. And I'm not talking about working for an employment agency or a temp agency, and I'm not talking about working under contract. Those types of time are not purchasable. I'm just talking about plain old part-time work for your employer. Once you achieve that full-time or hired into that full-time retirement eligible position, then that part-time work that you did before becomes purchasable. Same thing with TAP time, which is stands for the county's temporary assignment pool, which is kind of like the county's in-house temp agency. That would be the only type of temp agency time that is purchasable from the county's temporary assignment pool. And all of that time is purchasable once you become an ASERA member. Also, seasonal work, intermittent work, service as needed, project work, per diem work. There may be a few other categories. Um, those all fall under this category where you weren't eligible to earn service credit, but it is purchasable later once you achieve your ASERA membership. Okay, then we have the days between your hire date and entry date. This is the 2-week lag between when you're hired in the full-time retirement eligible position and your first day of ASERA membership. That 2 weeks is purchasable. Unpaid medical leave. So this goes to your maternity leave example. You can buy unpaid medical leave up to 1 year per instance upon returning from that medical leave. So let's say in your example, you go out on the maternity leave, let's say it's for 6 months, and you go through your sick leave and vacation leave balances for the first 3 months, and then the last 3 months, you're just out on unpaid leave, unpaid medical leave. Well, as soon as you return from the maternity leave, that unpaid medical leave, you can buy that 3 months worth, and that would increase your service credit by 3 months. Similarly, state disability insurance leave is when um, you are out on and I think workers' comp is included in here, workers' compensation. So you're out on disability leave or workers' comp leave. And often what will happen is you're paid partially by the state disability insurance or workers' comp system and partially paid by your employer. Well, the part of that time that you're paid by your employer, you're already earning service credit for. So there's this other partial time that you did not earn service credit for that were, the part of that time that you were being paid by the state disability insurance or workers' comp system, and that becomes purchasable when you return from that leave. Military leave during membership. This is not prior military service. This is military leave where you are an active member with the SARA. You go out on military leave, and then once you return from that military leave, you can buy that time as a SARA service credit. For the unpaid medical leave, I just want to mention again, the 1 year per instance is, let's say you're out on 1 year of unpaid medical leave. Well, you come back to work, you get one paycheck, and then you go out on another year of unpaid medical leave, and then you come back to work. Both of those years are purchasable. But if you were out for a year and a half and come back to work, just 1 year of that year and a half would be purchasable because there's a limit for that unpaid medical leave for 1 year per instance. Okay, now these next two bullet points, and thanks for sticking with me while I go into detail about these, because these will probably not apply to everyone. Like some of you may not find any time on this list that applies to you, but maybe it will in the future. So it's good to understand this concept for the future. Or maybe you have, one or more bullet points that applies to you. So I just like to explain all of them so that you have a full understanding of the different ways that you can purchase service credit and the different types of time. Okay, so next bullet point, redeposit of prior membership. This is where you used to be an SARA member in the past. You were working for one of our 6 employers, you were earning credit toward retirement, paying into the system, and then you stopped working for that employer. And when you did that, you took a refund of your contribution account with the SARA. And then you went and did something else. And then later on, you come and get another job for one of our 6 employers. And you become an SARA member again. And you look back and you think, maybe I shouldn't have withdrawn that money because when I did that, I lost all of my service credit from the earlier membership. So we give you the opportunity to redeposit that money, the equivalent amount of money that you had withdrawn, and get that service credit back from that earlier membership. And that is called a redeposit of a prior membership. Okay, next bullet point, redeposit of community property. Okay, this is when your as you can see, it says when your ex-spouse takes a refund. Okay, so in California is what's known as a community property state. And what that means is that any retirement that you are earning while you are married or in a state registered domestic partnership is considered part of the community property that is up for division when you get divorced or dissolve that state registered domestic partnership. So what happens in many cases is that that the assets will get divided, the asset of your SARA membership. And so the ex-spouse or ex-partner will take part of your account with them, which means that they take part of your service credit and an equivalent amount of retirement contributions, and then they get a separate account for them. And so then they, it's their separate account. They can do what they want with it. But in many cases, they will take a refund of that money. And if they take a refund of the money, we'll send you a letter in the mail telling you that they did that. And At that point, you can deposit, we'll give you the opportunity to redeposit an equivalent amount of money to get that service credit back that your ex-spouse took with them. And that is called a redeposit of community property. Okay, last category, other California prior public service. This is where you used to work this is where you used to work in another public agency in California. Some examples given here are state jobs, like working for CalPERS counties, state jobs, East Bay Mud, Port of Oakland, etc. And you are ineligible to collect a retirement benefit from the pension system that agency uses. Usually it's because you did not work there for long enough to get over the vesting requirement in their system. Now, if you're ineligible for their pension, what you may want to do is take a withdrawal of your money from their system and use it to buy that equivalent amount of time as a Sarah service credit. So, for example, let's say you worked for the Port of Oakland for a year. And let's say, I don't know how their system works, but let's say a year doesn't get you anything in their pension system. Well, you can take a refund of your contribution account over at their pension system, and you can buy a year's worth of time, buy a year's worth of Acera time. And that's called Other California Prior Public Service Purchase. So that concludes the list of eligible time. You'll notice that there is not just what some people ask about, which is airtime, which is you just want to buy an extra year and it doesn't fit one of these categories. The law does not allow for that. Okay, so I gave you a list of times that are eligible for purchase. So I should give you a list of time that is not eligible for service credit purchase. I mentioned this before. If you purchase additional vacation and you go out on that additional purchase vacation, that is not, you don't get service credit for it. It is also not purchasable later as service credit. But like I said before, if you buy a week here and there and go out on a vacation, I wouldn't sweat it because it'll be a drop in the bucket compared to your long career. Okay, now, non-medical leave without pay. If you're just out on leave without pay and it's not medical leave, then that is not purchasable. And one more thing I want to say about the medical leave with the unpaid medical leave being purchasable, that is for your condition only. So it's for your medical condition. So for example, paternity leave does not count because it's for your spouse's medical condition. And I know that that does not seem just, but that is something that the county board of supervisors needs to fix, in my opinion, my personal opinion. Okay, so that kind of thing. So let's see here. Next category, contract or temporary agency time. I already mentioned that's not purchasable outside temporary agency time. And then other prior public service where you still have contributions on deposit with the other agency. So going back to the previous slide, we're talking about this one right here. Let's say in that example where you worked for the Port of Oakland for a year, you still have your contributions on deposit over there. Well, we won't let you buy the year's worth of Acera service credit until you take a refund over there. A couple more things I want to say about that. Some of you will have done some work for some of these other types of agencies, and you will have either and there's two reasons that you probably don't want to do this. One is that you already have enough credit. Let's say you worked for CalPERS for more than the 5 or 6 years that it gets you over the vesting requirement over there. Well, you will be able to draw a pension from them at some point in the future. So you probably just want to leave the money there and draw your pension from them. The second category would be if it's kind of the same circumstances, but you also have reciprocity. You don't need to worry about this if you already have reciprocity because you're already going to get credit for the time that you worked over in that system, even if it's less than the vesting requirements individually for that system. Like I was saying earlier, the combined service credit across all of the linked together systems gets you over the 5-year requirement. I'll tell you more about reciprocity in the second half of the presentation. and how all that works. And then let me finish out the actually there's a couple of questions here. For sold vacation, it does not take away from your service credit, correct? That is correct. If you sell your earned vacation back to your employer, it does not decrease your service credit. And next question. Can I increase my pay period contribution or is it fixed according to my paycheck? That is a very common question that people ask. And the answer is no, you cannot increase your contribution to Acera. And in fact, you don't want to, because when you look at the retirement formula, you'll notice that your retirement contributions are not one of the three factors that we use to calculate your retirement. So if you were able to contribute more, it would get you nothing, because it would not increase these things. What you want to do if you have extra money to increase a contribution for is you would want to save that additional money in a 457B account, which we'll talk about in the second half of the presentation. There, you have a lot of latitude to you can put away a lot of extra money per year in that account. So we will talk about that a little bit later. And then there's a question about the highest salary. We will talk about that in a few minutes. Just to finish out the service credit discussion, let me tell you about the purchase, what it costs to make a service credit purchase and whether it's worth it. Okay. So what it's going to cost if you have one of these types of eligible time and you do want to make a service credit purchase, what it will cost is what your employee contributions would have been had you worked that time. So let me give you an example. Let's stick with the 3-month unpaid medical leave example. Okay. You go out on 3 months of unpaid medical leave for your own medical condition and come back and you want to buy that 3 months worth of unpaid medical leave time. Well, had you been working here for that 3 months, you would have been getting your paycheck, and part of your paycheck would have come out as your employee Acera retirement contribution. So you would have been paying into Acera for that 3 months. Now, whatever that dollar amount would have been had you worked that 3 months and paid into Acera, that is what you're going to have to pay to make that service credit purchase cost for that 3 months. Plus any interest that that money would have earned between then and now. Now, if you make the service credit purchase immediately, that would have not had any time, probably would not have had any time for interest to accrue. But what happens is all of the money that you contribute to Acera, we invest, like I said before. And we will post interest to your individual contribution accounts twice a year on June 30th and December 31st. So every time one of those interest dates passes and you don't purchase the service credit, that is another 6-month period of interest that you will have owed, because had you made the employee contribution, that money would have earned that amount of interest. So the bottom line there is the longer you wait to purchase service credit, the more expensive it gets, because you're going to have to pay the interest that money would have been earning had you contributed it by working during that time. So to continue that example, let's say that you're out on the unpaid medical leave for 3 months, you come back and you wait 5 years to make the service credit purchase. Well, that's 10 individual 6-month periods of interest. So you're going to have to pay what the contributions would have been for that 3 months plus that 5 years worth of interest. Okay. So the time to purchase service credit is as soon as you can. And what are your options for purchasing service credit? Well, you have a few different options. And first of all, I'll show you how to make the service credit purchase request to get the ball rolling and to figure out what the cost is going to be. All you need to do is log into your account on our website, and you complete the purchase redeposit request form at acera.org. Press the login button or go to acera.org/login. We'll do the calculations for you once we receive the request, and we'll send you a letter in the mail telling you how much it's going to cost to make the service credit purchase. So we'll do all this calculation for you. Okay. You get the letter, and you can at that point decide if you want to make the service credit purchase and how much of the service credit purchase you want to make. Going back to the list, I'll let you know that for all of the types of time, all the bullet points except for the redeposits, you can purchase just a portion of the time if you only want to purchase a portion of the time. For the redeposits, it's all or none. The other thing I'll mention regarding cost is that the last bullet point, other California prior public service, this one's more expensive than the other ones because you have to pay both the employee and employer contributions. And so this one can cost double or triple of what the other categories cost. Okay, so on that letter, you can decide to make the service credit purchase, and we give you different options, and we tell you how to actually elect that option. And your options are going to be paying by lump sum check on a post-tax basis, or you can roll over pre-tax funds from another pre-tax retirement account that you have, including 401ks, 403bs, 457bs, and IRAs. And so if you have one of those accounts with some money in it, you could roll over money from those funds on a pre-tax basis, and you won't get taxed for the rollover. Or we can split it up for you over time through payroll deductions, and it will just come out of your paycheck, and that's on a post-tax basis. Or you can do any combination of these three. Okay. So you have a lot of different options for making these service credit purchases. So when it comes time, and you do have one of these types of time, my recommendation is you immediately submit the purchase redeposit request. And because this calculation, these occasionally these take some months because there's a queue. We have to do some research. Sometimes your employer is not very responsive, and so it could take some time to get the letter back in the mail. And then you go ahead and get the letter, and then at that point, you can figure out which one of this combination of things you can afford that works for you. Okay, so I do have a quick question. What's the rate of interest for the calculation? If you want to calculate this yourself, if you want to do like a preliminary calculation before you submit the purchase redeposit request, the best way to do that would be to go out to our website. Let me show you how to do that. At some point, we should create an online calculator so that you can get ballpark estimates on this. But for right now, all you do is you go to, if you go to your browser, go to acera.org and type in /interest. And that will take you right to the retirement fund contributions page and to the interest section. And then it's under the FAQ, how much interest does Acera post to my contribution account? And what we have here is a list of, in the middle column, all the historical interest rates that we've posted to your contribution accounts, going back all the way to 1993, it looks like. So what you could do is you could, think about what you would have been contributing based on your pay stubs, and then you can, calculate the interest yourself if you enjoy math. If you don't enjoy math, just go ahead and fill out the redeposit purchase request, and we'll do all the calculations for you. Okay, now I do get this question. How do I figure out whether purchasing the service credit is worth it? Okay. Like, let's say that you have already received the letter, that we've sent you from the purchase redeposit request, and you're looking at this cost. There's this chunk of money that we want you to pay to make the service credit purchase. How do you figure out whether you want to do that or not, whether it's worth it? Well, you can actually figure it out for yourself. Let me show you how to do that. Step one is you go ahead and submit that purchase request form. You wait for the letter from Acera with the cost. Okay. Step two is you're going to log into your account on our website, acera.org, press the login button, or acera.org/login. And once you go in there, you're going to go to the estimate a benefit tool, and you're going to run two estimates. In both cases, in both estimates, you're going to use the same retirement scenario. So what you do is it's going to ask you for a separation date and a projected retirement date. So here's a screenshot of that tool. What you do is you think about a plausible retirement scenario for you. Let's say maybe, you're going to retire at age 60 or 62, and you just, pick a date in the future that corresponds with that. Separation date is last day of work. Projected retirement date is first day of retirement. If you're doing a scenario where you're working straight into retirement, these would be 2 consecutive days. And then what you're going to do is hit calculate. And on estimate number one, so it's going to give you a projected amount of service credit and salary for this benefit estimate that you're doing. Estimate number one, you're going to leave this field blank, override service credit. You leave it blank. Okay. So estimate number one, service credit override field, you put nothing in there. Okay. Once you hit submit, you end up with this PDF estimate that has estimated dollar amount for your retirement pension benefit that you would receive every month for the rest of your life. Estimate number two, you pick the exact same set of dates, same scenario, but in estimate number two, then you take the projected service credit that it's giving you and you add the amount of service credit that you're trying to buy in years. So in that earlier example, I was talking about 3 months of unpaid medical leave. Well, 3 months is a quarter a year, 0.25. Okay. So you would take the 0.25 in that example, you would add it to this number, you get out your calculator, and you put the grand total in the override service credit field, and it will do the benefit estimate with the larger service credit amount. And then you hit get estimate. Okay. Now, estimate number two is going to give you a larger pension benefit, retirement allowance than estimate number one because you have more service credit because it has the purchase service credit in. So you line them up, estimate two and estimate number one, and you subtract and you find the difference between the two retirement allowance amounts. Then you take the purchase cost from the letter that we sent you and you simply divide by that number, the difference between estimate two and estimate number one. And that tells you how many months it will take to get your money back. So essentially, you're taking the amount of money we're telling you that in total it's going to cost you to buy the service credit, and you're dividing it by the increase that that service credit is going to get you by making the service credit purchase. So, for example, let's say that the letter you get says, in order to make the service credit purchase, it's going to cost you $1,200. And when you look at the difference between estimate number one and estimate number two, making the service credit purchase increases your retirement allowance by $100 per month. Well, you will find when you divide the 1,200 by the 100, it's going to take 12 months to get the money back through increased retirement payments, because if you do make the service credit purchase, you're going to get that higher retirement allowance when you go to retire. So if it only takes you a year of higher retirement payments to get the $1,200 back that you put in to make the service credit purchase, that sounds worth it to me, because you're going to have a higher retirement allowance for the rest of your life after you retire. And it only took you a year to get the money back that you put down to make the service credit purchase. Now, if you do this calculation and it takes you 5 years to get the money back, that still kind of sounds worth it to me, because in most cases, people are going to live, 20, 30 years in retirement. Or maybe it takes 10 years, 15 years to get the money back. Then that's when you start, making that decision whether you want to do this or not, if it's going to take longer and longer amounts of time. So I explained all that math to you. You don't have all the stuff in front of you, but what I recommend is if you want to do that, once you get the letter from Acera, go back to the website and fast forward through this seminar to get to this spot. Let me go back to our website here. At any particular time on our homepage, you scroll down to the bottom here, webinars and seminars, and you click new employee slash mid-career webinar. This will always link to the most recent webinar that we've posted. And it's a YouTube video. And you just fast forward till you get to the spot again. And then, I'll just walk you through it again over video. Okay, so I told you about the age factor percentage. I told you about the years of service credit. Let me give you a few more details about the highest average monthly salary. When you go to retire, we are going to need to plug in a number here. We're going to have to figure out your highest average monthly salary. So we're going to do a calculation. And what we will do, our software does this automatically, is that we will find your highest period of pay from your entire career, and this is known as your final compensation period. For tiers 1 and 3, your highest period of pay in your entire career is going to be your highest consecutive 26 biweekly or 12 monthly pay periods, depending on whether you're paid biweekly or monthly. For tiers 2 and 4, it's going to be your highest consecutive 78 biweekly or 36 monthly pay periods. So essentially, if you're in tiers 1 and 3, it's your highest year of pay. And for tiers 2 and 4, it's your highest 3 years of pay. And it's anywhere in your career. For the vast majority of people, that happens at the end of your career because you make higher and higher rates of pay, but it's not like that for everyone. Some people will take a lower position at the end of their career to ease out of the career. And then that means that your period of highest pay would have been earlier in your career, but our software will find your period of highest consecutive pay, either the full year or the 3 years, depending on your tier. And then what we do is simply to get an average, we divide by the number of months in that period, either 12 or 36, and that gives us your highest average monthly salary. And that is what we plug into the formula here. So it's actually a pretty simple math. What types of pay will be included in that? And this is all gross pay before any deductions have been taken out. The types of pay will be your base pay, of course. And then there could be some other types of pay called footnotes or other pay codes. And there's like 1,000 different pay codes. I can't tell you off the top of my head whether your additional pay code is counted or not, but you can figure it out for yourself by going to acera.org/paycodes. You bring up the list for your employer, you find your pay code on there, and it will say yes or no, whether your pay code counts toward highest average salary or does not. The one pay code that I do know that never counts is overtime. And then if you're in tiers 1 or 2, if you sell vacation during that final compensation period, or you cash out vacation at the end of your career, and your final compensation period is at the end of your career, then some of that could be included, and there's limitations on that. We do a full explanation of that in the pre-retirement webinar. So if you want to take a deep dive into that topic, what I recommend is going back out to our website, acera.org, scrolling down, going to the pre-retirement webinar. You fast forward until you get to this slide on the YouTube video, and then I talk about this topic for 20, 30 minutes. Obviously, I don't have time to do that now, and it's really not important right now because many of you are in tier 4, so it's, it doesn't count for you anyway. And if you are in tier 2 or tier 1, since this is a new employee or mid-career webinar, you don't really have to worry about that until, much later. Okay, so before I move on, let me make sure that I have captured all the questions. Let's see here. Okay, first of all, so there's a scenario presented here. So you were a TAP employee, which is the county's temporary assignment pool, with Alameda County Probation Department. And you have 2.5 years of service credit or credit as a TAP employee. It's not really considered service credit until you purchase it. Okay, since April of 2024, you became a permanent employee. So if you buy that credit by paying the lump sum amount and you join some other job, which offers CalPERS, what will happen to your deposited amount? Can you still qualify for the retirement benefit pension, if the money is still with the Sarah. Okay, so I think what you're saying is you got your full-time permanent position a few months ago, and you have 2.5 years worth of tap time to purchase. Okay. Um, but you're also considering maybe taking another job with a reciprocal system, and you're wondering what happens to that 2.5 years of time that you purchased. Well, it will still count. It will still work for you because let's say that you work, you started in April, May, June, July, August, September, October would be 6 months. So let's say that you work until October, you buy the 2.5 years worth of tap time, and in October you leave and you join a CalPERS. You take a job that has their pension system through CalPERS. Well, you would have 3 years worth of time with Acera. And then if you go get the CalPERS job, you would get that job and then you establish reciprocity, link the systems together, and you would start earning credit over there. And once you have earned 2 years of service credit over at your CalPERS job, you're considered vested in both systems. And so both systems are working for you. Okay, then much later when you retire, you can retire from Acera and from CalPERS, and we'll both do a retirement calculation and send you a check. Um, and that's kind of preliminary on how reciprocity works. But I do talk about that a little in more detail a little bit later in the presentation. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, is the highest salary the last few years the highest salary in your career? I think I answered that question. It's the highest salary in your career, based on what our software finds as your final compensation period. How is the employee contribution amount determined? Is it the same percentage for everyone? It is not the same percentage for everyone. If you are in tiers 1, 2, and 3, if you're in tier 4, it is the same percentage for everyone. There's more information about that if you go to acera.org/contributions. And it will describe to you how your contribution rate is calculated if you're in tiers 1, 2, and 3. And there's a chart here of average contribution rates. If you want to see your actual employee contribution rate, you can find your tier here. And it's based on age at entry. The younger you are when you enter Acera in tiers 1, 2, and 3, the lower your contribution rate. The older you are, the higher your contribution rate. So you can figure out what your contribution rate is based on the chart. But like I said, for tier 4, everyone pays the same rate. For tier 4 general, and then for tier 4 safety, everyone pays the same rate. Okay, and then you wanted to see the slide again on how pay is calculated. So I believe you're talking about this slide. And then let's see here. Okay, let me address that interest question in the second half of the presentation. What does unused sick leave, what happens to unused sick leave? Um, so if you go straight from Acera, if you go straight from active work in your Acera employer straight into Acera retirement, we will convert your unused sick leave on a 2-to-1 basis to service credit, and up to a cap. And the cap is based on your MOU. And there's more information on our website. I think if you go to acera.org/purchase, there is a section on what happens to your unused sick leave. No, it's not acera.org/purchase. It's acera.org/service. So acera.org/service. I'll type that out for you. And it will describe that in more detail. That's something I talk about in detail during the pre-retirement webinar. Okay, is there reciprocity between Acera and San Francisco employee retirement system? Yes. We have a reciprocity with every county in California. Okay, and then the contribution rate is based on age, and reciprocity is included, right? So if I entered CalPERS at 19, that is the age for Acera. If you're in tiers 1, 2, and 3 with Acera, yes, that is correct. So um, your contribution rate would be based on the age that you entered the earliest reciprocal pension system that you have linked together. Oh, you're welcome. Okay, and then there's a question, can I buy service credit by check given by my mother? Interesting question. Can you can somebody else pay for your service credit? I actually don't know the answer to that one. My assumption, if I had to take a wild guess, I would say yes. I don't see why not, but that's actually a good question for my colleagues. I'm kind of a generalist, and they know all the ins and outs of this stuff. So I recommend going to acera.org/contact, and there's an email contact form there, and I would go ahead and submit that question to them. Sorry, I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. And then the interest question I'll answer in a little bit. You are welcome. Okay, before we take a break, let me just quickly address the limits to benefit payments, okay? So there's some limits that you may want to know about. You can read more about them at acera.org/limits. One of them is that you can't earn more in retirement. Like your retirement is capped at 100% of your final average salary, but you got to work here like 35 plus years to hit that cap. And it's a good thing to hit that cap because it means you're achieving 100% salary replacement. But the main cap that I want to tell you about, the main limit, is for tier 4 members. The written into the law that created tier 4 is this highest average salary calculation cap. And what it does is that it tells us that we can't use more annual salary dollars to calculate your retirement than this cap. These are the numbers for 2024. If you go out to acera.org/limits, there's more details. The numbers go up every year, and it's based on the Social Security wage index limit. Is that correct? Yeah, Social Security wage index limit. But what it means is that let's say you're a general member right now and you're trying to retire in 2024. And let's say you have a salary that is higher than 151,446. Let's say that as of October, let's say you're going to retire December 31st, and as of October, you've already made 151,446. Well, at that point, we will stop collecting retirement contributions from you. And for the rest of the year, you will get more in your paycheck because we're not collecting employee contributions from you. And then when we go to calculate your retirement, we can't use any more annual salary dollars than this amount for that 12-month period. And safety, you can see the safety members, you can see the cap is higher. That's just the way the law is written. And then if you didn't retire, then as of the first of the year, we would start collecting employee retirement contributions again until you hit that cap again the next year. What it does is it does give you more money, after you hit that cap to put into your deferred compensation account. But this is just a limit that is, in tier 4. And then somebody's asking, why is there no limit like that for tier 1, 2, and 3? And it's because there didn't used to be this limit, but then whenever the state created what they call the Public Employees Pension Reform Act, also known as PEPRA, in 2012, that took effect January 1st, 2013, which created tier 4. It's just something that the state wrote into the law that governs Acera, because I guess they wanted to limit public pensions. Um, so, that's just what the state decided at that point. Okay, finally, here is what the whole thing looks like put together. And this is an example. This is a tier 4 member. They retire at age 65 after earning 25 uh, years of a Acera service credit exactly. So based on them being tier 4 and based on them being a general member, their age factor percentage is 2.30%. So we plug that into the formula. We plug in their 25 years of service. In this example, their highest average monthly salary is $6,000. We multiply those three things together, and that means that their monthly retirement allowance is going to be $3,450. Now, if you multiply these first two things together, you take the 2.3 years and you multiply by the 25 years of service, that gives you the salary replacement percentage. They're achieving 57.5% salary replacement, which means that they're replacing their working salary of $6,000 with 57.5% of that money, which is $3,450. And that's a pretty good salary replacement number from just the Acera pension alone. Okay, let me show you how to get a pension estimate because I talked a lot about how the pension works in general, how to maximize your pension, but it might illuminate it a little bit more if you get a specific pension estimate for yourself. So I'll show you two ways that you can get an idea of what your pension will be in the future. The first way is by using one of these ballpark salary replacement charts. This gives you kind of just a ballpark estimate of what you can expect to receive from Acera in your pension. So you go to acera.org, you go under members, and you go to the third um, menu item down, planning your future retirement income. Or you can just type in acera.org/planning into your browser. Okay, so scroll down to step 1 and open up this first accordion here. This is basically describing what I'm telling you to do here. All you need to do is click on the button for your tier. I'm going to go ahead and click on General Members Tier 4. And what this is going to show you is based on different retirement scenarios, what percentage income replacement you can expect from your Acera pension. So I'll just zoom in here a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. Across the top is different ages at retirement, and across the column is years of service credit. And all you do is you think about the future and you think about a plausible retirement scenario for you. If you're 30 now and you're thinking about, you want to see what income replacement you just started and you want to see what income replacement percentage you would get if you work straight through to age 60, well, you would find where those intersect. So if you are 30 now and you retire at age 60, you would have earned 30 years of service credit if you worked full time that entire time. And then you come over to age 60, if you retire at age 60, you will have achieved 54% income replacement by retiring at age 60 and having 30 years of service credit. And one feature of this is that you can proceed diagonally then when you find that intersection to see the effect of working less and working more. Let's say that you work another year and retire another year older. Well, that would be 31 years of service credit and 61, an age of 61, and you would achieve 58.90% salary replacement. Or if you work a little less than that, a year less, 49.30. 2 years less, 44.80% salary replacement. So that kind of gives you an idea of how these salary replacement charts work. So that's, like I said, that's kind of a ballpark method, just so you kind of have in mind what salary replacement percentage you're looking at. The way to get a precision estimate that will give you a dollar amount is by going to acera.org and clicking the login button. Once you log in, you will see an account summary screen. And on the account summary screen, we'll show you some summary information about your pension account, like your current employer, your tier, your age, your date of entry into a SARA, your date of birth. It's always good to check these numbers just to make sure that nothing is incorrect. And if it is, you should go ahead and contact us. There's also years of service credit, contributions, so you can see a lot of different stuff about your pension account. Now, since we're talking about getting a retirement benefit estimate, all you do is you click on this estimated benefit tool. And then what you do is you think about a plausible retirement scenario for you and whether you are going to work straight into retirement or not. Maybe you're going to stop working and retire at a later date, defer your retirement to a later date, and that's fine. But you can do all of those scenarios by using these two fields, separation date and projected retirement date. If you want to see what happens if you work straight into retirement, these would be 2 consecutive dates. Separation date is your last day on payroll. Projected retirement date is your first day of work. Let me just zoom in here so you can see it a little bit better. In this example, this person is separating from their employer in 2030, and they are retiring the next day. So all you do is you plug your dates in, you hit calculate. It will do a projected amount of service credit for you. It's going to do a salary projection based on your current salary. So it's not going to estimate future salary increases. And then you can put in beneficiary info in here if you like. If you do select a beneficiary from the dropdown that you have already designated, because we have it in our system, just check the date of birth is correct. Otherwise, it can throw off some of the numbers. And what you end up with is this PDF retirement benefit estimate. I'll just zoom in here. It's going to give you in this column your member monthly benefit, which is synonymous with your pension benefit or your retirement allowance. That's what this is. This is the amount that you can expect in this scenario to receive every month for the rest of your life. Now, you're going to see different retirement options here, and I'm not going to take a deep dive into those. I talk about those in the pre-retirement webinar. Those are different options that you will select at the time of retirement. You don't really need to worry about those right now. You can just kind of go by the unmodified option, which pays the highest to you and which is what the vast majority of ACERA members select for their retirement option anyway, the unmodified option. And this is your projected estimated monthly retirement benefit. So that, and it's, this is how to get a precision benefit estimate. Okay, so moving on, let me talk about your retirement eligibility. I had mentioned when we were looking at the pension milestone chart before that you become eligible to retire through a combination of years of service credit and age. So I'll show you a slide for tiers 1, 2, and 3, and then the next slide I'll show you tier 4. So if you're in tiers 1, 2, and 3, there's 3 different combinations of age and service credit that get you to retirement eligibility. Option number 1 is you are at least age 50 and you have at least 5 years of service credit and you have at least 10 years of membership. Now, if you're in one of these tiers closed over 10 years ago. So you're definitely going to have at least 10 years of membership. So you don't even have to worry about that. You just have to be at least age 50 and have at least 5 years of service credit, and you can retire from ACERA and draw a lifetime pension. Option number 2 is that as a general member, you can, if you have at least 30 years of service credit, or if you're a safety member and have at least 20 years of service credit, you can retire at any age, even if it's younger than age 50. Option number 3 is that you can retire at age 70 with any amount of service credit, even if it's less than the 5 years that you need to retire under option number 1. Okay? So those are your 3 combinations that get you to retirement eligibility. My guess is that the vast majority of people are becoming eligible to retire under option number 1. Okay, so that's tiers 1, 2, and 3. Tier 4, you have 2 different combinations that get you to retirement eligibility. Option number 1 is that as a general member, you're at least age 52, and as a safety member, you're at least age 50, and in both cases, you have at least 5 years of service credit. So you don't need any more than that. You can retire at age 52 as a general member with 5 years of service credit. Now, Remember that the more service credit you have, the higher your pension is going to be. So it'll be a pretty modest pension with only 5 years of service credit, but it will still probably pay a bunch of your bills in retirement. Option number two is that you can you can retire at age 70 with any amount of service credit, even if it's less than 5 years. Okay, so that's a pretty quick topic. Now let me talk about some additional benefits. I talked a lot about the retirement allowance, the pension allowance. We offer other benefits, including medical, dental, vision, and other non-guaranteed benefits. There's also the opportunity to submit an application for disability retirement should you become permanently disabled and can no longer perform your job duties. You can apply for disability retirement. That's a separate process from the regular retirement that's also known as service retirement. And then death benefits. So let me tell you about some of these. Let me give you a few more details about these. I'm not going to talk a lot about the healthcare benefits and other non-guaranteed benefits right now because, these kind of shift over time and they might look a little bit different by the time that you become eligible to retire. Like, what the plans are and what the costs are and all that. It'll probably be different. But regarding subsidies, regarding extra money that ACERA offers, an extra benefit, which is the subsidy that ACERA offers to help pay for the costs of some of these things. What I want to show you right now is how to qualify for that. And it's based on years of ACERA service credit. And the reason for this is because there's a separate reserve fund that ACERA administers. Our Board of Retirement administers it. And it pays for these non-guaranteed benefits. These are extra benefits. And actually, Alameda County offers a greater set of these extra benefits like healthcare benefits than any county in California. And it's because of this really strong reserve fund that we have. So you can see that there are 5 benefits here. There's a medical subsidy that has 3 different levels. There's a dental subsidy, a vision subsidy, a subsidy to help you cover the cost of Medicare Part B, and a supplemental cost of living adjustment that is paid on top of the guaranteed cost of living adjustment. So some people get 2 cost of living adjustments. And the reason I want to talk about this right now is because basically we're talking about future planning. We're talking about retirement planning and career planning. And the qualification for receiving these non-guaranteed benefits is based on your years of ACERA service credit. And you can see that most of them start at 10 years. For the medical subsidy, MMA stands for monthly medical allowance, which is the name of the medical subsidy. There's 2 higher levels of 15 and 20 years. So the reason I wanted to tell you about this now is because since we're talking about career planning, you might want to go ahead and put an extra milestone on your pension milestone chart for the healthcare subsidies that start at 10 years. Let's say that you have already worked here for 9.5 years and you're thinking about stopping working and going and doing something else. Well, you might not want to do that. You might want to stick around for 6 months, get over the 10-year mark, because this will represent a lot of extra money to help you cover the costs of these healthcare items that you're going to need to enroll in anyway when you're retired. So kind of the bottom line here is that I recommend not retiring right before one of these service credit cutoffs. Go ahead and get over the 10-year mark if you're about to. Go ahead and get over the 15-year mark or the 20-year mark if you're right under it. Stick it out a little bit because this will represent a lot of more additional money in retirement. Just a caveat here, these are not guaranteed benefits. They're based on the sustainability of that reserve fund. Currently, the reserve fund is considered very sustainable. There's over $1 billion in there. And one thing to note is that this is years of ACERA service credit to qualify. This doesn't include reciprocal service credit. Okay, so that's kind of all I want to talk about regarding the health care benefits. There's more information on our website if you want to dig into the details of what they currently are. Let me tell you about designating your beneficiaries for death benefits and keeping them current. Okay, so What is a beneficiary? A beneficiary, that word just means somebody who gets benefits. So your Acera beneficiary is the person you designate to get your Acera death benefits. Now, you either did that on your what we call your member enrollment questionnaire when you first started with Acera. What we've transitioned to is now called the Acera welcome form. Or later on, you would have done that on our beneficiary designation form. And I'll tell you more about how to designate your beneficiaries and check on who your beneficiaries are in just a minute. Let me tell you about the death benefits first. Okay. So as an active member, should you die before retirement? And so the whole category of death benefits that I'm talking about is death benefits should you die before you retire from Acera. Once you retire, there's a whole different set of death benefits. And then we talk about those in the pre-retirement webinar. So for right now, we're talking about should you die before retirement, what would your beneficiaries receive? Okay. Now, if you die as an active member, and I don't mean you die at work, I mean just simply you have a job currently with one of our 6 employers, but you're not yet vested, what your beneficiaries would receive is basically a return of the balance of your contribution account. All of the employee contributions, employee only, the employer contributions always stay with the fund. Those never get refunded. The employee contributions plus all the interest that we've posted to your account based on your employee contributions, plus 1 month of your salary for each year of service that you have already worked up to 6 months worth. So for example, if you've already worked here for 3 years, they would also receive 3 months worth of your salary. Now, if you die in active status as an active member, which means you have a job currently with one of our 6 participating employers, and you are vested either through earning 5 full-time years or the equivalent of 5 full-time years with Acera, or through a combination with a reciprocal agency. If you're considered vested, your beneficiaries would receive a choice of these 3 options, option 1, 2, and 3. Option 1 is the exact same as the one I just showed you for the non-vested members. Okay, so they have the choice of that, the return of the contribution account plus the 1 month of salary for each year of service. Option 2 is a monthly survivor's allowance, okay? And it says to qualified beneficiaries only. That's spouse, state registered domestic partner, and minor children. Option 3, and for the spouse and domestic partner, it would be paid for the rest of their life. For the minor children, it would be a temporary benefit, which would cut off at age 18. Option number 3 is a hybrid of options 1 and 2. There is a lump sum paid out, which is the 1 month of salary for each year of service, and then there's a reduced monthly survivor's allowance. Okay. And again, this is to qualified beneficiaries only. Now, to the question that I received earlier, the email that came out in April that we sent out to everyone who is in active status, that was titled something like "Leave Greater Benefits to Your Loved Ones. New Acera Election Available." This is that. It's called the Advanced Death Benefit Election. Okay. And what I'm showing you now is a repeat of the slide I just showed you, but you having had made the Advanced Death Benefit Election. Okay. You can still see there's 3 options. They still get option number 1. Option number 2 can go to any beneficiary. It's not just spouse, state registered domestic partner, or minor children. It can be literally any human. Okay. No trusts, no estates, no charities, no dogs, any human. And it can be multiple humans. Okay. And they would get this advanced death benefit election basically does 2 things. It allows you to leave a lifetime benefit to any beneficiary, and it also it maximizes that allowance. In most cases, it's going to be more than if you hadn't made the election, and you were just doing it as before without the election. Okay. And then I think option 3, let me think about this. I do think they still have option 3. But I'm not sure if the survivor's allowance is greater. I'd have to check on that. Anyway, the way to make this advanced death benefit election is by downloading this form at acera.org/BEN. And this is our new active deferred beneficiary designation form. Okay, it's basically the beneficiary designation form that you all use as active or deferred members to redesignate your beneficiaries. Now, it doesn't matter if you've already designated your beneficiary. All you need to do is fill out the form again, and there's a checkbox. Okay, so you save the form on your device, you complete all the fields, you check the box for advanced death benefit election, you print and sign the form. There's instructions on the last page to how to submit the form. Okay, and that's all you need to do. You just basically need to resubmit the form, check the box. And once you do that, as soon as we receive that, you've made your advanced death benefit election, and your beneficiaries are able to receive the maximum survivor's allowance. Let's say your beneficiary is an adult child, or let's say your beneficiary is a uh, brother. You wouldn't, if without making the advanced death benefit election, you wouldn't have been able to leave a lifetime allowance to them. Okay. Or let's say it's your spouse, but what it does is it increases the monthly survivor allowance that they'll get for the rest of your life. There was a question, is there any downside to the election? There is no downside to this election. Okay. So basically every active members should make it. Deferred members don't need to worry about it because it doesn't apply to deferred members. Deferred members are people who have stopped working with ACERA but have not retired yet. They're in deferred status. There's more info about the benefit at acera.org/ADV. Okay, so and then deferred members. Like I said, deferred members are people who have stopped working but have not yet retired. So they don't work for one of our 6 employers anymore. And what their beneficiaries would receive is a return of the employee contributions plus interest. Okay, there's a full page about death benefits, including that advanced death benefit election. If you go to acera.org/death, keep your beneficiary designations current. You can always find the beneficiary designation form on our forms page, but like I said, if you go to acera.org/ben, it'll take you right to it. That's the shortcut to that form. Check your beneficiaries. Do it today. Log into your account on our website. Click on Nominated Beneficiary. Look at the list of beneficiaries. If you see a beneficiary that is like your spouse from 3 spouses ago, you need to go ahead and redesignate your beneficiary, because if you were to die tomorrow, then we would pay out whoever is nominated on this page. Or if this is the correct person, but you have not yet made the advanced death benefit election, we would pay out based on you not having made the advanced death benefit election. So go ahead and submit that, resubmit that beneficiary designation form. Okay, let me help you understand some career planning options. What I mean by career planning options is that you're not going to work here forever. At some point, you have to stop working here. And what are your options regarding when you quit your job, when you stop working for one of our 6 participating employers? Well, option number 1 is that you can work straight into retirement and retire from ACERA. And if you do that, you're going to earn service credit right up to your retirement date, basically. We're going to convert your sick leave to service credit on a 2-to-1 basis up to a cap. You can go work somewhere else if you want, because we're going to consider you an ACERA retiree, and we're going to pay you your lifetime pension every month for the rest of your life. Okay. So that's option number 1, is to just go ahead and retire if you're eligible. Now, option number 2 is if you're terminating before retirement. If you stop working but don't intend to retire from ACERA immediately, what are your options? Well, you have 3 options. I'm going to label them A, B, and C. Okay. And in this case, I'm going to adjust the pension milestone chart to show you that there's a gap between these. This is the date that you're terminating your employment. And maybe if you do retire from ACERA, it's going to be after some time and not on consecutive days. Okay, so options A, B, and C. Option A is that you can become a deferred ACERA member, which simply means that you leave your contributions on deposit with Acera. So as a deferred member, you're still an Acera member. The word member is in there. Your membership is basically kind of just on hold, except for the interest part. The interest is not on hold. Interest continues to accumulate. So that goes to answer one of the questions that's been up on the board for a while. Interest does continue to accumulate. Okay. And in fact, there's no negative interest. And people ask me what I mean by no negative interest. What I mean is that no matter what happens in the market, we don't take money out of your account. So if there is a 6-month interest period where we have a negative investment return, you don't have a negative investment return, a negative investment return. Your balance never declines. It only goes up. Okay. It's an absolutely safe place to park your money. There's no risk. And if you go to acera.org/interest and you see what we have historically earned in interest, it tends to be annually above 7% if you annualize it over many years. I cannot think of a place that you can park your money that earns that kind of interest, has historically. I mean, of course, the past does not predict the future, but has historically, that there's no risk. Okay. You can even retire later at a deferred status. So maybe you stop working and you have not yet reached the eligibility requirements for retirement. Well, that's fine. You can just wait as a deferred member until you reach those eligibility requirements, like, the age 50 for tier 2 or the age 52 for general members for tier 4, and then you can retire at that point. Or you could come back to work and earn more credit toward retirement later. So you would pick back up right where you left off. You would start paying contributions again, and you would start earning service credit again. Or you can be refunded at any time. So at the time that you leave, if you don't know whether you want to take a refund, which you'll see is going to be option C, take a refund of your contribution account, you don't have to make a decision right now. At that point, you could become a deferred member, and then at some point in the future, get a refund. There's more info at acera.org/defer. If you're planning on doing that, I recommend reading that. There's good reasons to become a deferred member and not so good reasons to become a deferred member. Okay, option B is establish reciprocity. So what is reciprocity? I've already alluded to this a lot and given you a lot of details about this, but this is linking different California public retirement systems together, including cities, counties, state jobs, and other agencies that use the state system to provide pension benefits to their employers. There's a full list at acera.org/reciprocity, and you're basically linking those other pension systems with Acera to gain these benefits. One is that the service credit earned in all the systems combined gets you over the vesting and retirement eligibility requirements. If you earned 2 years over in Contra Costa County, then come over to Acera, earn 3 years service credit, 2 + 3 is 5, you're considered vested in both retirement systems. Also, if you're over age 52, for tier 4 general members, that gives you the retirement eligibility as well. The second benefit is that the highest average salary that you earn under any of the reciprocal systems will be used by all the systems to calculate your retirement. So if you were earning $20 an hour over in Contra Costa County, and then over at Acera, you're earning $30 an hour, and you work for, let's say you did 10 years over there and you do 15 here. When you go to retire, we're both going to do a calculation. Over in Contra Costa County, they're going to use your age factor percentage over there, your 10 years over there. At Acera, we're going to use your age factor percentage for our tier here. We're going to use your 15 years here. But then when it comes to the salary component, we're both going to use the highest salary that earned under any of the systems. So you actually get a boost over at the previous system because they're going to use a higher salary figure in their calculation. And that is the main benefit of reciprocity, is that it makes it so that you don't kind of start over from scratch when you go to a new public pension system in California. Okay, so then the third benefit of reciprocity is it could lower your contribution rate if you're in tiers 1, 2, and 3. And the fourth benefit is that it could put you in an earlier tier. if you entered a previous system before the cutoff date for the tier. Now, to qualify for reciprocity, you got to do 4 things. You have to choose option A. You have to become a deferred member and leave your contributions on deposit with every system you want to link together. Number 2 is that there can be no more than a 6-month gap between the termination date of the first job and the start of employment of the next job. So you could link a bunch of systems together. You could, leave here, go over to San Francisco County, leave there, go down to, Orange County, leave there, go up to LA County, link them all together as long as there's no more than a 6-month gap between the termination date of one job and the start of employment in the next job. You also can have no more than 12 weeks of overlapping service. That's easy. Just don't have any. Don't go out on a vacation at your current employer and start a job for a new employer while you're on vacation at the first employer, because they're going to cash you out at your current employer for your vacation anyway. You're going to get all the cash for that. Just make a clean break, start a new job when you're not on payroll at an old job, and that prevents that from happening. And you got to retire from all the systems on the same day. Okay, so that's option B. Option C, and there's more at acera.org/reciprocity if you want more info on that. Option C is to take a refund of your employee contribution account plus interest. So if you do that, we will pay it out in a lump sum payment. If you are just looking for cash and you're not rolling it over into another retirement account, you're likely going to lose 1/3 of your money immediately to taxes and penalties if you're under age 59 and a half. I think it's 59 and a half, based on early withdrawal from a retirement account. Unless you roll over the funds to another pre-tax retirement account, and then you won't owe taxes or penalties at that time. These can take 45, 60 or more days to process, so it's not an instantaneous thing. And basically, you're waiving all your rights to Acera benefits. You're canceling your Acera membership. You're saying, I don't want the lifetime pension. I don't want access to the healthcare benefits or the death benefits. Just cancel my membership and give me my money. And that's totally your right, because it's your employee contribution account. One little pitch that I'll make for not doing that is if you're even anywhere near being able to retire from Acera and draw the pension, it's probably not advantageous for you to do this. I can't think of a scenario where it would be, because, as I said earlier, if you do take option number 1, which is retire, we are going to give you, or you take option A and defer and retire later, we're going to give you all of your money back, the balance of your contribution account plus interest, in the first 3 to 5 years of pension payments. You're going to basically get a refund anyway. It's just going to take 3 to 5 years. And then you will, after that, have a lifetime pension. You're going to get way more money if you retire from Acera than if you take the option C withdrawal, okay, in most cases. And you can sit down and do the math for yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. Okay, let's talk about making a retirement planning picture. So I'm running a tiny bit behind. I might go into Gene Hilliard's time. I actually don't see him up here yet, so that's okay. So I showed you this slide earlier, which is the greater context for, okay, there he is, which is the greater context for the entire discussion that we're having, which is basically how to get you to the salary replacement percentage that you need to retire comfortably. How to maintain your standard of living in retirement. How do we do that? Well, we need to focus on these 3 sources of income, and we need to just get a little future picture of what they're going to be, okay? Because this is the money that you're going to be living on when you retire, and it needs to be, as retirement planners will tell you, at least 85% of your salary. I'm sorry, at least 80% of your salary right before that you were making right before you retired as a working person. Now, Gene Hilliard, who is the 457B expert, is going to try to get you up to 100% salary replacement. I'm going to stick with 80, which is kind of the minimum. So let me help you fill out this equation. This is like I was saying at the beginning of the presentation, this can feel stressful, but this is actually pretty easy. You are all experts at your jobs. Like you do stuff way more complicated than this on a day-to-day basis. So this is actually going to be pretty simple. What you're going to do is you're going to get projections for each one of these three items. So I'll show you how to get those, okay? First of all, we're going to get an Acera projection and a Social Security projection. You get some estimates or projections. So you get out a piece of scratch paper and you're going to get these Acera projection and the Social Security projection. Okay. So for the Acera one, like I showed you earlier, you go to acera.org, log in, use the benefit estimator, put in your retirement scenario, hit submit, and you end up with this benefit estimate. And then you take note of um, what it's telling you it's going to pay, Acera is going to pay you. Okay. Write that on your scratch paper. Also, take note of the age at retirement that for this scenario that you're doing. You do a similar thing over at Social Security's website. Okay. You go to ssa.gov/estimator, or you could just go to ssa.gov. I think they have a button for the estimator right on the homepage. You log into your account there. They will give you an estimate that looks something like this once you answer a few of their questions. This for Social Security is also going to be a personalized estimate just for you because they have all your records in their software. Okay. And it will look something like this. It will give you three different ages that you could possibly start collecting an amount from Social Security, starting with the minimum age of age 62. Okay. And then you can print this out. I think you can do some more detailed estimates for different ages in there, depending on your scenario. But you just want to like print that out with the Acera estimate, keep track of all of it, or you can write it on a scratch paper, piece of scratch paper. I'm going to focus on this age 62 scenario here, where we're getting about 1,700 from Social Security and about 2,200 from Acera in this retirement scenario. Okay, so basically what I'm doing is I've already used estimators. Sorry, I should put that slide again somewhere at the front. I've used estimators to get the Acera monthly pension estimate and the Social Security estimate. Now I'm also going to use a third online estimator to see if there's a gap, see if these two get me to 80%, and if they don't get me to 80%, how much more I might need to save now to get pointed in the trajectory of 80% income replacement. Okay. So what you can do is you can Google retirement calculator and like 30 of them will come up. There's some listed out here. Another thing that you can do is go out to our planning your future retirement page, which is acera.org/planning. It's under members and it's under planning your future retirement income here. And we give you some links there's some buttons here on the page. Okay. There's also a link to the instructions that I'm about to give you so that you can rewatch them. And so you can try a bunch of the different calculators. There's a link to the Empower Retirement Calculator. And so Gene Hilliard is going to show you that calculator when I turn it over to him for the 457B plan. The Vanguard calculator I'm going to show you right now works kind of similarly. In both cases, what you're doing is you're inputting the estimates that you got from Acera and from Social Security, and it will help you plan out how to fill in the gap, if there is one, to get you up to the income replacement amount that you want, get you pointed in that trajectory. So this Vanguard calculator. It's free to use. Vanguard makes it free because they want you to buy their stuff, but you don't have to. You can just use their calculator. And I think the Empower calculator, if you start a 457B account, works similarly. And so you can probably find you can try a few different calculators. You could just rely on the Empower one if you have a 457B account. But the idea here is to learn about if there is a gap and how to fill that gap with additional savings. Okay, so what it's asking you here is some specific questions about your scenario. So I'm going to take a hypothetical person who's 30 years old and wants to see what happens. We're just speculating here. What happens if this person retires at age 62? Let's say their current salary is $70,000 a year. Okay. And in this blank, it's asking how much dollar-wise they currently save for retirement. Let's say it's zero. Let's say that you save nothing for retirement additionally so far. That's perfectly fine. We'll figure out if you need to save and how much. And it's also asking how much you've already saved. Okay, let's say it's zero. Let's say you've saved nothing so far. Perfectly fine. We'll figure it out. And then this is asking for the salary, the income replacement percentage that you want to target. I'm going to put in 80% here. If you can feel free to put in 85, 90, 100, and try to get pointed in those trajectories as well. Like Gene Hilliard, the 457B expert, is going to talk to you about in just a few minutes. Okay, this number right here is the annual return that you are going to expect from your additional retirement savings. And the assumption here is that you are going to park your money, you're going to save additional money, and you're going to put it somewhere that has the opportunity to earn interest, like a diverse portfolio of stocks and bonds, and or the type of diverse portfolio that you would have access to if you put money into a 457B account. My opinion is that a good guideline here is to pick a number between 2% and 8%. You can find stuff for 2% that is completely safe. It's like, CDs and high interest savings accounts. You can, but if you tend to put your money in a diverse basket, like a diverse portfolio of stocks and bonds, over the past history, those tend to earn 7 to 8%. So just to be conservative, I'm going to put in 7%. That's actually a Sarah's expected earnings amount on our investments. I'm going to open additional income sources. And this is the important part, is that you have the ability to put in Social Security income, which was about 1,700, and pension income. If you have additional pensions, you can add them all up and you put the pension income here and then you hit calculate. So what this calculator is doing is showing you in the green bars your estimated income in retirement. And then in the gray bar, it's showing you how much it thinks that you're going to need in income to maintain your standard of living. Now you can see there's a gap here. The green bars should be the same height as the gray bar, but they're not. So that means between the Acera pension alone and the Social Security income alone in this scenario, you would not have enough income to maintain your standard of living. You would probably not achieve 80% income replacement. Okay. But what you can do, since you're either a new employee or you're in the middle of your career, because you're watching this particular webinar, you can start saving money now to get pointed in that trajectory to have this amount of money to fill in this gap. Okay. And we can figure out how much using the calculator. So I'm going to see what happens if I save an additional $500 per year, which would represent about 0.7% of this income amount. And then I'm going to hit recalculate and see what happens. Okay, well, it doesn't increase that much. Let's see what happens if I save 5,000 per year, which would represent about 7% of my annual income. I'm going to hit recalculate. Okay, well, I overshot it a little bit, so I probably don't need to do that. So what about 4,500? Recalculate. Still a little over. What about 4,400? Still a little over, I think. I could stop there. Let's see what happens with 4,300. Okay, I think the calculator burned out and it's not changing anymore. So I would want to, if I had more time, I would refresh the page and do it again. But I think when I've done this before, about 4,400 for this scenario would be the amount. So That might sound like a lot to save annually. Um, but if you divide it up over 26 pay periods, which I would recommend doing, that'd be $169 per pay period. And if you save it somewhere that is on a pre-tax basis, like the 457B account, I think you'll find that you're not going to get a $169 hit on your paycheck because it'll be tax deferred. So it'll be what comes out of your paycheck will be a little bit less than that. So going back to the slides, just to finish up here, and before I turn it over to Gene Hilliard, kind of the bottom line here, what I'm trying to tell you is because you have time, because you have years before you retire, what I recommend doing is doing these estimates right now using the calculators. As you can see, it took me, 5 minutes to do the two calculators and then the third one, and see if there's a gap. And if there's a gap, see what it would take to fill in that gap to get you pointed at 70 to 80% income replacement, or 80%, or whatever you want to target. And then if you can't do it right now, like your budget is pretty tight, get started. Put away $20 per paycheck if you can't do, whatever it's telling you. And you get pointed in a direction. Then come back 6 months later or a year later. Do the three calculators again. See what it's telling you. See if you can increase your amount of savings and start to get pointed in that direction. And once you are able to get pointed in that 80% income replacement direction, or if you want to shoot for more, you can shoot for more. You just do the calculators every year, readjust your savings. And that way, I think you'll find that even though it's not going to be exact, you're not going to, because the future is uncertain, you'll find that once it comes time for you to retire, you will have achieved the income replacement goal that you set out with by saving that additional money and using what they call like the three-legged stool of retirement income, which is your pension, Social Security, and additional savings. There's some more info here that I will let you peruse on your own. The full article that kind of goes in detail through this process is that one that I showed you out at acera.org/planning. It gives you all the details of once you determine how much more to save, where to save it. Gene Hilliard is going to rightly try to convince you to put it in the 457B account because it's super easy. You can do it right out of your paycheck, and in most cases, you won't miss it. But there's some other options there, and it does talk about adjusting your trajectory periodically. And like I said, it gives you links to all those different calculators that you can try out and gives you some more info about what interest means. And sorry, let me go back to the presentation here. Saving your money somewhere that you can earn interest, and the power of compound interest, and being cautious financially, and different risk options. So I'll let you, since I'm pretty much out of time, I'll let you peruse that information on your own. At this point, like I said, the full article is at acera.org/planning, but I want to turn it over to the expert. Like I said, I'm kind of a generalist. The expert on investments and saving additional money in this 457B account that you all have access to as government employers is Gene Hilliard. Gene, are you there? Looks like you're muted. While he's unmuting, I'll
Yep,
just
there we
introduce
go.
him. Okay.
I found it.
Gene is
Hey,
the
how's it going, Mike?
good. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you.
Gene is contracted by the county to provide this type of education. And even if you're not a county employee, the information, 99% of the information he's telling you will apply to all of you in the rest of the 5 employers. And you, like I said, you all have access to save money in 457B accounts. So, Gene, do you want to go ahead and share your presentation?
Absolutely. Let me grab it here. How does that look?
Looks good. We are not seeing your notes, so there we go. So
There we
yeah,
go. Yeah,
take
you
it
know what?
away.
I unplugged my second monitor because I keep messing that up. So now, now I don't have to worry about it. All right, thanks, Mike. I appreciate
Sure.
you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, my name is Gene Hilliard. I'm Vice President, Financial Advisor of Emerge Financial Group. We're a financial services company in Oakland, helping our clients with financial planning. We do taxes for folks who do accounting for small businesses. As Mike mentioned earlier, we were hired really roughly 15 years ago by the county. And at the time, we were hired by Prudential Retirement, which is now Empower. So we were hired to provide retirement planning, investment advice, and investment guidance and education to county employees. A little bit about my background: for a little over 20 years, I've been helping my clients create wealth, maintain that wealth throughout their lifetime of their kids and grandkids. And I'm also a retirement counselor. And I've been pretty much a retirement counselor because my goal is to help each and every one of you maintain your current lifestyle in retirement. Okay. What exactly does that mean? Well, I mean, as Mike mentioned earlier, the exact same paycheck you're getting today, I want you to get that same paycheck in retirement. Now, many of you are probably halfway there because you work for Alameda County. Alameda County offers a pension through ACERA. If you stay with the county any significant amount of time, 20, 30 years, there's half your salary right there for the rest of your life. So the key is, let's figure out how we can cover that other 50%. Now, there are a number of different opportunities or investment options as it relates to retirement. But I'm just going, just going to give you an overview of what's available through your employer. Okay. And that's your deferred comp plan, also known as a 457B plan. So don't get these confused. It's not an IRA, it's not a 403B, it's not a 401k. It's a 457B, but here with the county, we call it deferred comp. So let's dive right into it. Okay. Let's see. There we go. So this is these are the bullet points I'm going to touch on throughout the presentation. Right? We're bridging the gap from a SARA pension, Social Security, right? We're going to talk a little bit about the fact that this money is going to come out of your paycheck automatically. Tax deferred savings. We'll talk about the investment options a little bit. Consolidating your plans. You may have a plan, 457 at another employer that you might want to consider rolling over. The distribution options and catch up provisions and the plan loan availability. Okay. So when you're thinking about retirement, it's also very important to come up with a goal. What is the end game? How much income do you want for the rest of your life? Or are you looking for an account that has $1 million in it, $500,000? What exactly is the goal? Now, most of your goals should be tied to the future that you imagine, right? So stop and ask yourself, what exactly am I going to be doing in retirement, right? Many people oftentimes they talk about, I want to travel. I'm going to ask you, if you tell me that, well, where you want to go? And once we've determined where you want to go, how often you want to go, how much is that going to cost you? And so we need to make sure we have that money sitting in an account ready for you to spend to take those vacations. Do you plan to spend some time with friends and family? I know a lot of you have been frustrated, especially since COVID. It's been a challenge. Um, and some of you may not have felt extremely comfortable traveling in airplanes, going across the country, et cetera, because that virus is still with us. It's not as significant as it was in 2020, but it's still out there. But what's the plan there in terms of visiting family? Are you looking to buy a vacation home, split time in a home in the Philippines or in Mexico or in southern South America, et cetera, right? What exactly is your plan for retirement? And let's see if we can come up with a pool of money or a basket of assets that you can tap into when the time is right. Mike earlier talked about historically, most financial planners will talk about 80% of your pre-retirement income is what you want to shoot for. But as Mike mentioned, hey, let's shoot for 100. If we need to settle for 80 and it doesn't kill your current lifestyle too bad. Let's just shoot for 100%. Hey, more is better, but you may or may not need that much. Now, some of you may be thinking to yourself, well, why wouldn't I need 100% of my income? So I ask you to stop and ask yourself, what sort of uh, bills that go away at retirement? What expenses go away in retirement, right? I can think of a few of them right off the top of my head. Um, do you have to pay into a SARA when you retire? Right? The answer is no. So there's a bill that you don't have to pay. Are you still going to pay into deferred comp? Which, by the way, you can't. Once you leave the county, once you retire from the county, you can't make any contributions. So whatever you're contributing now, or you continue to contribute in the future, that's going to go away. Okay. Do you still have to pay into Social Security when you retire? And the answer is no. So there are three bills, if you will, that are going to go away in retirement. And that's why we tell folks you're not going to need 100% of your salary. You may need a little less. But again, as I mentioned, let's shoot for 100, settle for 80, 70, 60, etc. if we have to. Where will your income come from in retirement? Obviously, we have Social Security. And for those conspiracy theorists out there that think Social Security is not going to be around, I'm telling you, you are incorrect. Now, there's no guarantees, but I'm fairly confident Social Security is going to be around because that's one of the few government benefits that's supported and appreciated on both sides of the aisle. It just needs to be fixed. That's the hard part. Fixing Social Security may require raising taxes. We don't like raising of taxes, but I believe it still will be around. You're going to have your pension through a SARA or any other uh, pensions that you have available to you, retirement plans, you have income from assets potentially. Maybe you have some rental property. Maybe you plan on inheriting property when you retire that you're going to rent out. So there's an income there. And then income from earnings. Some of you, and I encourage it, do a little bit of work. Work 20 hours to keep yourself busy, keep yourself sharp. But I would hope that you're in a situation where you don't have to work. But if you want to work to make some extra dollars, hey, I say go for it. Okay. So these are typically where your income is going to come from. Okay. Now you may think to yourself, well, I haven't started deferred comp. I know I'm way behind. Um, how much should I contribute to deferred comp? Well, that's a moving target. That's a personalized decision, depends on your lifestyle. But typically, we tell folks you want to try to contribute 10 to 15% of your pay into deferred comp. Okay. If you can't do 10 to 15, that's okay. Start somewhere. Start with 5, start with 2, but just make sure you're coming up with a strategy every year to increase it. I promise you, you're going to get used to it and you're not going to miss it. There are a couple of tax advantaged ways of contributing into deferred comp. One of the most popular ways to contribute to deferred comp is pre-tax. That's where you pretty much have a built-in tax break. It reduces your taxable income. You pay less in taxes. Okay, so that is an option via pre-tax. The pre-tax version works best if you believe you're going to be in a lower tax bracket when you retire. So that's the pre-tax version. But if you believe that potentially you're going to be in a higher tax bracket when you retire, then the better option for you may be the Roth. How does the Roth work? Where you're putting money into the account, you're paying taxes, but the growth of your money is tax-free. So if you put in over your career $100,000 into the Roth, and it's not a Roth IRA, it's a Roth 457. So the rules are different, just to make sure we're clear. So if you put $100,000 into deferred comp after tax, and it grew to a 500,000, guess what? $400,000 is not taxable to you. So that's a good thing. Now, some of you are cynical and say, well, there's got to be a catch. Why in the world would the IRS allow me to not pay taxes on $400,000? Well, if you're 59 and a half, if you're under 59 and a half, and the account has not been opened up for 5 years, then that $400,000 is taxable. But if you start to withdraw the money after you're 59 and a half and the account's been opened up for 5 years, you don't have to worry about paying any taxes. So that's kind of nice to have some income in retirement that's not taxable. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, which one do I go with? Well, let's have a conversation. Talk to your CPA, talk to your financial planner or investment guy, or have a conversation with me and I can guide you in the appropriate direction. When you're thinking about side-by-side comparisons of the two, just know that if you invest pre-tax, it's going to lower your current taxable income. You're not going to see a dollar for dollar change in your paycheck. So if you invest $100 a paycheck, for example, your paycheck's not going to change by $100. It's going to change by roughly $70, $75. Versus if you go with the Roth, it's a dollar for dollar. Okay, so those are the major distinctions and the effects on your paycheck. And we already talked about when you start withdrawing pre-tax, it's going to become taxable. So it's ordinary income, but the hope is that you're in a lower tax bracket. And if you pull money from the Roth version of deferred comp, you don't even have to worry about taxes. Okay. The one thing I like about deferred comp and many pre-tax investment accounts is that your money grows much faster, right? Your money compounds. I mean, if you use the rule of 72, which is two numbers, when you multiply them together, get you closest to 72, that's roughly when you can anticipate your account to double, right? And this is assuming you're not putting any money in. So for example, take a look at that where your money can double in 12 years. So the rate of return that you need to obtain on average, if you want your money to double in 12 years is 6%, right? 12 times 6, 72, right? So that's where the rule of 72 falls into play. And I'm sure some of you may have heard about that term. But your money grows faster, especially if you invest pre-tax, because the money that you're putting in is earning interest, right? And then the following year, the money that you put in plus the interest earns interest. So that's where the power of compounding works and your money grows much faster. Okay. How much can you contribute in max in deferred comp? In 2024, we haven't come up, I believe 2025's maximums will be notified probably in October. But for 2024, if you're under 50, you can put away $23,000 a year. That's the max in this calendar year. Okay. So if you were to start contributing now, you can, if your paycheck can support it, you can get to $23,000. If you're 50 and over, the IRS will allow you to put away an additional $7,500, bringing your total to $30,500 as the max. And in some cases, the IRS will allow you to put away $46,000 a year for 3 years when you're close to retirement. That's called the 3-year catch-up. If you're interested, want to hear more about that, I encourage you, schedule an appointment with me and I can walk you through the details. Okay. Here's a hypothetical example of a client that I've met with. They're 25 years old. They met with me. They say, hey, Gene, I want to retire at 65. What do I need to do? And I encourage them, all right, Miss Client, let's start with putting away $300 a month, $150 a paycheck. Can you afford to do that? Yes, I can. Over the next 40 years, this person, assuming a 6% rate of return, you're looking at $575,000 at age 65. But say you're 35, you listened to my presentation 10 years ago, you were hard-headed, Or maybe you just flat out, Gene, I can't afford it. I'm 25, I got student loan debt. I just can't afford to put away $300 a month. But now you're 35, you've gotten a couple of raises, you're much more responsible with money. You come to me and you say, hey, I want to contribute to deferred comp. How much should I put away? But I'm going to, instead of 300, I'm going to say, hey, because you waited 10 years, 500 is your number. This person wants to retire at 65 as well. So in 30 years, assuming a 6% rate of return, person has 490. And then here's another hypothetical example. A person 45,000 bucks a month for the next 20 years, you're looking at 455. So that's a lot of money. And the point of this slide is, yes, we want you to start as soon as you can to get the most bang for your buck, but all is not lost if you're waiting until later in life to save towards retirement. You can still create a pretty significant amount of money in a retirement account. So I don't care if you're 45, 55, 65. It's never too late to start contributing for retirement. Okay. And here's a slide I touch on a little bit. Maybe you've worked for Contra Costa County, or maybe you work for Napa County, San Francisco, and you have an account that's over there that's maybe sitting idle. I would encourage you to consider rolling that money over into deferred comp. Consider it. Let's have a meeting. Let's have a discussion, and see if it truly makes sense for you to move your money over. Okay. All right, so there was a question from Rebecca. What is the easiest way to make sure that we are contributing the max? Take the max contributions for the year and divide by 26 and make that the contribution. That is correct. Now, assuming you're beginning in January, yes, you take what is it, 23,000 divided by 26, and that's roughly how much should come out per paycheck. Absolutely, right? Or maybe you're starting now contributing to deferred comp. Figure out how many paychecks are remaining in the year. I think there's probably 8 or 9. So take 23,000 divided by 8 or divided by 9. Typically, it takes about 2 pay periods for your first contribution to take place. So you also want to kind of keep that in mind. But if we need to expedite it, we can, in terms of making sure your contribution goes in as quickly as possible. So Rebecca, I hope I answered your question there. Okay. Let's see. Distribution options. Say you leave county service or you retire from the county. What are my options? Now I want to make sure this is clear that there's never a penalty for withdrawing money out of your deferred comp. So your age is insignificant. So if you, for example, you start with the county at 25 and you leave the county at 45 and you want to start withdrawing your money, you can. There's no penalty. Now, you're probably still going to be on the hook in terms of taxes if you invest pre-tax, but there's never a penalty. Okay, so I just want to make sure that is clear. You can't leave this money in deferred comp forever. So once you're 73, the IRS will require that you start taking out at least a minimum. How much is the minimum, Gene? Well, that depends, but I figure look at it roughly between 4 to 6% a year will need to come out of your account in retirement. Now, if you, for example, are 73 and you are still working for the county, then you are not required to take out your RMD or required minimum distribution out of your deferred comp. You don't have to, but as soon as you leave the county, at whatever age, 74, 75, you got to start withdrawing money. Now, to be clear, if you are still with the county at 73, but you have other retirement plans elsewhere, right, then you are still going to be required to take the minimums out of those plans. So just because you're still working, that doesn't mean you can avoid having to take out this RMD out of all of your accounts. You only you only don't have to worry about taking disbursements out of your Alameda County deferred comp plan, but any other plans, you got to start withdrawing money out of there. Okay. Know that your money is not completely tied up, so you don't have to worry about that while you're working. Some people are reluctant to invest in deferred comp because they believe their money's tied up. But if you are ever uh, in an emergency situation where you need access to cash, maybe your son's or daughter's tuition is due, or maybe you got in a little trouble with credit cards and you want to once and for all clean that up, you can borrow from your deferred comp. How much can you borrow, Gene? Well, you can borrow 50% or $50,000, whichever is less. You pay yourself back with interest. What's the interest rate, Gene? Well, the interest rate is the prime rate plus 1%. So whatever prime rate moves around occasionally, it's pretty high now. I think the prime rate is around 8. So you're going to be paying 9% plus to borrow from your deferred comp, at least at the moment. But the good news is you're paying yourself back with interest. Okay. Let's talk about the investments. There are roughly 15 investments in deferred comp that you can choose from. But first, we need to determine what type of investor are you? Are you a do-it-myself investor? Are you a help-me-do-it investor? Okay. If you're a do-it-myself, meaning you want to pick your own funds, pick your own allocations, right? You have the experience or the expertise to make it happen. Make sure you do your homework. Go to AlamidaCountyDCP.com, click on the investment tab to view the investment options. What are the options? Well, there's this stable value fund that carries no risk. There's some bond funds. There's a balanced fund. You have your small cap, large cap, mid cap investments, international. We also have some index funds very similar to Vanguard. Maybe you're an index investor. So there's some investment options available to you if you're the type of person that prefers to invest in socially responsible investments. Well, there's impact sustainable allocation. That may be the right fund for you, but do your homework. Okay. Many of you are probably help me do it investors. So I would encourage you to participate in the Empower Goal Maker models. That's where you tell us what your investor profile is, what your when you anticipate retiring, and we'll do the rest. And now that I think about it, I forgot to enter a slide. There's a new program available to you guys out from Fisher through managed accounts. So you can create, you can have Fisher Investments create a portfolio for you. It's going to cost you a little bit more, but you get some professionally managed help. So that's another help me do it option that's available to you. So if you have questions about those models, I would encourage you, call me later, schedule an appointment later, and then I will give you some details on that. Let's talk about fees. There's no such thing as a free lunch. We have to have this plan is going to cost you some. But in terms of jargon, you want to know, you want to have an idea of what the expense ratio is in a particular mutual fund. An expense ratio is a component of a mutual fund that pays all parties involved. The investment manager, or pays for statements to be sent out. It pays for Empower to do their thing. It pays for me to do my thing. So there's an expense ratio. But typically, the way in which you invest your money is tied to that. So let's talk about passive investing. What is passive investing? That's where you're pretty much getting an index. Vanguard, for the most part, are predominantly passive investing strategies. You're getting an index. So because there's no expertise, it's going to cost you a lot less. So within the county's plan, if you were to invest in the Fidelity 500 index, that's an index fund, their expense ratio is like 0.01. So there's very little, right? But then there's active investing. That's where you're paying an expert to buy and sell stocks, bonds on your behalf. Now that's going to cost you a little bit more. The active investing mutual funds in deferred comp will cost you somewhere in the neighborhood of 0.30, 0.40% to a little over 1%, right? So it's not truly expensive. And the reason why is because you're part of a county's plan that has $1 billion plus in it. Okay, so how'd I do? Did I cover these items appropriately? You know, bridging the gap, automatic deduction. I don't think I touched on that. So just know that when you decide to sign up for deferred comp, money's going to come out of your paycheck. So you can't say, Gene, here's $100. Can you put that in my deferred comp? No, it has to come from your paycheck. Okay. What's next? I encourage you, don't wait, sign up. All right, just go to treasurer.acgov.org, pull down an application and complete it. If you're already in the plan but you want to increase it, go to the same website and go to payroll modification, and then we'll take it from there. Now, when you do decide to sign up, some of you are going to get a little tripped up in terms of how much to contribute, if you should do a dollar amount or a percentage of your salary. I would encourage you, instead of doing a dollar amount, do a percent of your salary. And the reason why I say that is if you do a percent of your salary, as you get raises over time, deferred comp is going to automatically increase. If you do a dollar amount and you get a raise, you have to remember to go back in to increase your contributions to deferred comp, which in my experience, you're probably unlikely to do that, right? You're going to get used to that extra money in your paycheck and then you're going to spend it. But if you do a dollar, if you instead of doing a dollar amount, you put a percent of your salary, it's going to automatically increase it, and then you don't have to worry about it going forward. And you're going to build up some assets much faster that way. If you're currently in the plan and you need access to your account, go to AlamidaCountyDCP.com, create a user ID and password, and you're off and running. If you are not in the plan, don't even waste your time creating a user ID and password because you don't have an account yet. So sign up first. Once your first contribution has taken place, then you can go back in and create a user ID and password. Okay. When you're going through this process of retirement planning, you're not alone. We have 3 fantastic financial advisors here to help you at no extra charge. There's Mark Tomei on the left through Wells Fargo, Jason Brummett on the right through Empower, and then myself with Emerge Financial Group. You can just call this number 855-969-4572. Hit option 3 and you can schedule an appointment. You can also go online. Go to go to AlamidaCountyDCP.com, click on Meet Your Financial Advisors, I think it is. When you click on that, you're going to see these same 3 pictures, and then just click on Schedule an Appointment. And we're not doing in-persons yet. I think we're getting close, but we're mostly virtual and phone appointments. So just schedule an appointment and kind of take it from there. Okay. And I just talked about, there's a website. So with that, I'd love to entertain some questions.